What's up guys, ATCG here. Welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day, and today we're doing an update on probably the most requested deck ever since the support came out, but we've been waiting for the structure deck to come out because we wanted to do an actual real-life deck profile rather than doing Yugioh Pro replay and decklist deck profile, because I want to go more in depth so I can talk to you about the new playstyle of the deck. And this is Shaddoll's, one of the most nostalgic decks for pretty much everyone. Everyone remembers the Duelist Alliance format that people claim it's been probably, if not the most perfect format in Yu-Gi-Oh! So I'm presenting to you the updated version of the deck with the new cards that got released in the Shaddoll Showdown structure deck. So if you enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the video, and to our channel if you want to see more amazing content, and comment down below which decks you want to see us do next. So now, let's get into the deck profile. So starting off, we have the two real Shaddoll Wendy. She's the new monster that came out. Two new monsters came out, but I think she's the one worth running. I think Ariel is a bit lackluster. She does not offer anything to the deck that the deck actually needs, but Wendy gives you exactly what the deck needs, because the deck didn't have a way to bring out a lot of monsters on the field rather than just fusion summoning. Then you would have to set a monster on your own. But when Wendy goes to the graveyard by a card effect, you can special summon one Shaddoll from the deck in face down defense position, and when she's flipped, you can special summon one from your deck in face down defense position, so you can do both of the effects. The flip effect actually lets you summon it on face up too, but I don't think you want to do that. But you can just use both effects to fill the board with all your shadows and use the flip effect to get all the value. She's also a wind, which is relevant because of the new fusion monster we got, and she's also a level 3 psychic, which allows you, of course, to bring her out with teleport, which we, of course, play in the deck. Next, we have two Shaddoll Beast, good old one. You send to the grave with a card effect, you draw a card, you flip it, draw two, discard one, you trigger all your Shaddows. Keep in mind, of course, that you can only use only one of both effects, all the Shaddows, once per turn, but I'm pretty sure everyone knows that by now. Just mentioning it just in case you're new to the deck. Two Hedgehog, you send to the grave, you search a Shaddoll monster, you flip it, you search a Shaddoll spell and trap. Back in the day, it was very optimal for you to set it if you were lacking the ability to fuse, because you don't have that many fusion spells in the deck. But right now, I think the format is at a point where you cannot really afford to set pass unless you're playing against a slow deck like Salamangreat or Sky Striker. So yeah, there are many ways to get your spells, but it's still really good to have it because it gives you more monsters in your hand. Two Falco. You send it to the grave by card effect, it sets itself in face down, you flip it, you special summon a Shaddoll monster from your grave in face down defense position. Usually what you want to do with Falco is bring back your fused fusion monsters, because that's the way to keep the advantage going, because yes, setting a Shaddoll Beast is good and all, but the main deck Shaddolls are not the ones dealing the damage, your extra deck monsters are, so that's why Falco is really good to have during the late game as well, so you can bring back your constructs, so you can beat over your opponent's stuff. Two Dragon, discard it, pop a card, flip it, target a card your opponent controls, return to the hand. The ability to pop spells and traps is actually the most important one, because you are trying to go second with this deck, so you can utilize the full effect of Shaddoll Fusion, so you can send Shaddoll Dragon from the grave to pop one of your opponent's back row. But the deck has a new play, which I'll talk about later, with a new trap card, which actually makes Shaddoll Dragon a really good disruptor as well. And the last monster is 3 Squamata. I think Squamata is the only one you should max out on, because it can act as any of your Shaddoll cards. When it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can send any Shaddoll card from your deck to the grave, beat any of your monsters to use their effects, or any of your fusions, so you can retrieve them back when your fusion monsters are set to the graveyard. And the new trap card, which is actually the going first play you are trying to do with this deck, so you can actually have a disruption, because the deck, aside from Winda, doesn't have a specifically good turn 1 play. Now, for the normal summon of the deck, I used to play cards like Armageddonite, Blazeman to get your fusions, Rhoda to search them, but with the new structure deck and with a new fusion monster we got, I think Gale Dogra is actually the best normal summon you can have in the deck, and I'll explain why. When the new Upkalon is sent from the anywhere to the graveyard, so you can send it from the extra deck with Gildogra. You can search a Shaddoll card and discard a Shaddoll card. So it can search your fusions, which is actually the biggest problem for the deck, that it cannot have access to its fusions very consistently, because the only way to search them back in the day was Hedgehog. So now that you have this, you can actually search a fusion and discard a Squamata or a Beast or a Dragon and get their effects. But also Gildogra is even better than you think, because he can also act as a light monster to fusion summon with Construct. And this is another problem the deck had, that Construct is the best monster to summon, but you don't have an easy way to access light monsters. And you might be thinking right now that, hey, Gildogra is an Earth, but when I get to the extra deck, I'll explain how Gildogra is a light monster. Moving on, 3 damage juggler, of course, the best light monster you can use from the deck to fuse with, because it's very free. You can get another search, so usually you search your hat trigger so you can have an extender or another fusion material, and 1 Trick Clown with the 1 Hat Trigger, because they're both searchable by Damage Juggler. And back in the day, they used to be Xyz material. I don't run any Xyz now, so you can just search them to keep your advantage going and use them as fusion material for either Construct or Sekinaga later in the game. And I do play hand traps. 3 Ash, she's probably the most generic hand trap even to this day. And her attribute is not bad, because Grista is not a bad monster to summon in case you really need to do that first turn, so you can stop your opponent's special summons. And 3 Veiler, because I prefer Veiler over Impermanence in this deck specifically, mainly because Veiler is a light monster, and like I said, getting to a light monster to be able to summon constructs sometimes can be a trouble. So that's why I think Veiler is a really good hand trap to have in this deck. And of course, you can incorporate Lancia as well in the side deck to be able to do the same thing, either be it a hand trap or a light fusion material. For the spells, 3 Shaddoll Fusion, of course, the bread and butter of the deck. That's why the deck is really good going second, because if your opponent has a monster from the extra deck, which nowadays pretty much every deck has, unless you're playing against Altergeist or Guru, maybe even Altergeist sometimes can have a Link Rebel on the field. So you can get the full effect to fusion summon from the deck. So you send everything you need to the grave, trigger all the effects. Construct will send another card to the from the deck to the grave, and of course you can get it back whenever one of your fusions gets sent to the graveyard. 3 Shaddoll. This is either a disruption or a push, because it's a quick play. You can either set it and summon a Winda during your opponent's turn and lock them out of their turn if they're playing a heavy special summon deck, or when you're trying to push for game, then you can just attack with everything. Your opponent has a couple life points left, and you just drop the Shaddoll, summon another monster, usually a construct, and just beat them for game. 3 Super Poly. Of course, I think it's mandatory to have in any Shaddoll deck. I've seen some people not play it, but I still think it's one of the best cards to have in the deck, because it has the same use as in Heroes, where there's a fusion monster for every kind of attribute. So if you have a Shadow, so you can basically make Super Poly live against any matchup, which is the problem with Super Poly against some matchups where you're playing the generic fusion monsters in your extra deck, then against some decks Super Poly could possibly be dead in your hand, but not in this deck, because it can use every attribute. And of course I run at least 1 copy of every attribute fusion in my extra deck to be able to make Super Poly live. And keep in mind, Super Poly got banned because of Shadows in the first place back in the day. So yeah, even Konami admits that this card is broken, this deck. And for the one-offs, 1 Teleport to get your Wendy. I think it's a bit better than running an extra copy of Wendy, just because you can get it on the field. Sometimes getting more monsters on the field to be able to attack over stuff is important, and Wendy has 1500 attack, which is respectable. And 1 Foolish, because again, all your Shadows trigger. You can either get to a Shadow by using your Hedgehog if you're missing a Shadow, pop a back row, anything you want, but it can also act as a light target by sending your Damage Juggler and sending your Trick Clown. And the new trap card that got released that actually gives the deck a decent going first play if you can get to one of your fusions is your Shaddoll Incarnation. This card has 2 effects. You can again use only one during each turn. Its on-field effect is that it special summons a Shaddoll from the grave on face-up or face-down defense position, which is nice and all. But the best effect is the grave effect, which you can banish it from the graveyard, and of course the trap is a quick effect, and you can banish it along with another Shaddoll card, and either flip a Shaddoll face down or flip it face up. So flipping face up is actually what we're going for here, because of Wendy, you can special summon from your deck either a Squamata or a Dragon face down when you fusion summon with her, and then you can send this to the grave with either your Squamata or your construct, and during your opponent's turn, flip that Dragon or Squamata face up, so you can actually either destroy a monster with Squamata or return a card to your opponent's card with Dragon, which is actually something that the deck really needed in order to be able to compete in a competitive metagame, because if your opponent figures out that your strategy is going second, if it makes you go first, if your only good play is summoning a Winda, which is not that hard to deal with compared to when it came out first. So this is actually what the deck needed to be able to disrupt your opponents and potentially have another turn so it can actually do its stuff. And now let's go to the extra deck. 3 Construct, of course, this is the ace monster of the deck, the best card in the deck, what you usually want to go for every single turn 1, and you will go through all 3 of them in almost every game. I guarantee you that if you play less than 3, you're going to miss that third one a lot. Of course, she needs a light monster and a Shaddoll, and she sends any Shaddoll card from the deck to the grave upon special summon, which special summon is actually important because sometimes you can bring her back with a trap card to be able to send another card. And of course, like all the Shaddoll fusion monsters, she retrieves a Shaddoll spell and trap when she's sent to the graveyard. 2 Winda, 2 because sometimes you're trying to use her during the early game to be able to lock your opponent, and then you need another one because all you have are Shadows, so the only thing you can summon is Winda because she requires a dark monster, and she's the easiest monster to summon. 2 Upkalone, the new Shadow monster that came out. It needs 2 Shadows with different attributes, so the only way to actually summon it is by either using a fusion monster along with a Shadow, a fusion monster that's not Wind, of course, or using Wendy, which is why Wendy's attribute being Wind actually is very important. And when she's summoned, you can target a face-up card your opponent controls and negates effects permanently, which is not bad effect, because if you can actually do this with all Shadow fusion during your opponent's turn, is actually an extra piece of disruption. But the most important effect is, and is why I run Gale Dogra, is if it's sent from anywhere to the graveyard, not just from the field, so you can just send her straight from the extra deck to the grave. You can add a Shadow card from your deck or graveyard to your hand and discard a card. So she not just adds the spells and traps back like the old fusion monsters, she searches from the deck and any card. So you can search a fusion if you don't have one, discard any Shadow and trigger its effect. If you have a fusion spell and you don't have a monster, you can search Hedgehog, discard Hedgehog, and get another monster. So she pretty much gives you everything you need in combination with your Gale Dogra. And for the fusions that are mainly used for Super Poly, Shekinaga. Shekinaga can also be summoned with Hot Trigger, and she's not a bad card to have on the field, even turn 1, because she negates the effects of special summon monsters in your opponent's side of the field by discarding a card. Greista. Greista can also be summoned with either Gale Dogra or your Ash Blossom. I'll explain Gildogra in just a few seconds. And she negates special summon, inherits special summons by discarding. Anagatilis, because of the water attribute, her effect used to be good against Necros, but I don't see it being useful against in any of the current decks. But again, if you're playing maybe against a deck that uses waters, maybe like against Paleozoic deck, then you have to have the option in the extra deck. Wendigo is actually very important now because Appaloosa is everywhere, and Wendigo is Wind, Appaloosa is Wind, so you can just take the Appaloosa with your Super Poly. And I also run 2 generic fusions to be able to use Super Poly even when I don't have Shadow on the field, and that's Starving Venom, of course, the most generic, and my Dragon for those random matchups where it can actually come up. And I only play 2 links in this deck, and they are the ones that allow Gale Dogra to be 2 different attributes. First of all is Almiraj. Almiraj, you can summon it by link summoning a monster with a normal summon monster with 1,000 or less attack, which Gale Dogra of course is, and can become into fire, so you can summon Greista. But more importantly, I play Secure Gardna, which you can link summon by using your Almiraj. Secure Gardna cannot be used as link material, but it can be used as fusion material, and Secure Gardna is light. So if you have your Gale Dogra, you can pretty much have a guaranteed construct on the field. And the good thing about Gale Dogra in this deck is that you don't have to use its effect twice to be able to get as much advantage. Sometimes just using it once is good enough to get you to a play, so you don't have to spend 6,000 life points right off the bat, so you're in danger of getting killed by pretty much any kind of push from your opponents. So yep, that's why I think Gale Dogra is really important in this deck, because it fixes all the problems that the deck had, and with the new support that it got from the structure deck, it pretty much comes as a whole package of a really good deck. So, yep, that's the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a glimpse and a good grip of how you're supposed to play the deck now. I still don't know if it's tier 1 worthy, but it can actually now compete in a very competitive level. And I think for locals or regionals, you can have a very successful event with such a deck, and it's amazingly fun. Trust me on that one. If you have never played the deck before, pick it up, and I guarantee that you're going to have a blast. So, yep, thanks for watching, guys. Again, subscribe to our channel if you want to see more content, like the video if you enjoyed this deck profile, comment down below and tell us which decks would you like to see us do next, and we'll try to deliver as much as possible. And we'll see you next time.